Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fullest podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Bostwick, and I'm so excited to have my dear friend, Meredith Baird, on today. It's actually our second episode together. She was on when I first launched the podcast years ago. And I'm just really excited to catch up with her. She's the founder of Nusifera. She also is the author of multiple plant-based cookbooks. And she was instrumental in helping me start my company, which used to be called Poppy and Seed and later turned into the Fullest. So I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks for coming all the way to OC. I wanted to just kind of start off with the fact that you wear so many different hats in wellness, and you used to work in restaurants, and you have your cookbooks, and now you have your whole skincare line, which is amazing, and I use daily on myself and my children. And I just kind of want to hear about how you manage all of that and how it feels to have gone from, culinary school to restaurants to where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, my journey has really been a testament to sort of following your passion, following your interest in creativity. I mean, I graduated college in 2006, and the economy was crashing and everything. I can see that now in hindsight, the idea of just going out and getting a job felt really hard. And so I have been a vegetarian and just super interested in the plant-based world, and used to voraciously read cookbooks and make meals with my mom, and that was just always an interest for me. And so when I graduated college, I ended up ditching what was going to be a path to go to law school, and then decided to go to culinary school instead, to study raw food, which is super niche and just pretty obscure at the time. But it really opened my eyes to so much, and just inspired something in me that I don't think would have happened had I not done that, and, have lifelong friendships, etc. And then wellness, that world has just blown up, over the course of the last 15 years. And so I don't know, I'm taking it one day at a time and feeling I don't know, just really grateful to have had the opportunity to pursue what I'm passionate about.
Was it a big deal to not go to law school in your family and pursue raw food, or was your mom super supportive of that?
I mean, my mom has always been super supportive of whatever we want to do. And she could see, any sort of holiday, family meal, anything like that. I was always in full control of, and making it, executing it. So I think she understood that was definitely something that was calling me. I was definitely supported in that. And, a relationship in college that was pretty, he was very entrepreneurial, and I could sort of see oh, there's this different way of doing things, and started working in restaurants, and those people so creative. So it's just at that time it was a fun environment. And I did feel I started to meet kindred spirits that were sort of out of this academic box of you go to school and then you have a specific job, and it's oh, you can sort of make your way in this other realm.
What were you doing in the restaurant scene? Because, they're different. Some people end up being servers. That's their career,
yeah.
Right? So it's so different.
Yeah, so my first job in a restaurant was as a hostess, and then I was a server, and then I went to raw food school and learned that. And actually, that boyfriend's mom, who's now a good friend of mine, she was living in Napa, and after I graduated culinary school, she was like, "You should come move to Napa with me." And I was like, "Okay."
Oh my gosh!
So I ended up in Napa, and there I was doing cleanse meal delivery. I set up a website. I mean, this was just Facebook, but there was still MySpace, the whole, it was just and being now I can see being in the Bay Area where there was so much tech, early adaptation to Twitter, and that way of communicating was just blowing up. So I was using those tools to like get the word out there, and yeah, I was doing cleanses and meal delivery. And then I ended up working in the wine industry, like wine, like I could see that part of the problem with the plant-based food movement was it was just like fringe and hippie, and there was no ambiance. And Cafe Gratitude, you know, they were in the Bay Area at that time and doing, you know, something really special and amazing, but it was also definitely pretty fringe.
Yeah.
You know, and being in Napa, it's a more mainstream food, or like a mainstream high-end food culture. But yeah, like I really felt like there needed to be this like merge of like beautiful food that's like feels gourmet along with like wine and just like enjoying a meal and sitting down together and having that. And Napa was a great place to explore that. There was an amazing vegetarian restaurant there called Ubuntu, which Jeremy Fox did. Like nobody even, I mean, people know about it, but it was really,
still there?
It's not still there, but it was really ahead of its time. I applied to be a pastry chef there. I did not get that job, but I'm super glad I didn't. But yeah, just like that was kind of my intro into the food world. And then I ended up working with other people. I don't know. I ended up working and doing a lot of things, wine lists, writing menus.
You moved from Napa down to LA when you got that job?
I moved actually from Napa to New York.
Oh, okay.
Opened a Peruvian restaurant in New York, worked and opened a culinary school and restaurant with Matthew Kinney.
No way.
Yeah.
Was it a Peruvian Matthew Kinney restaurant?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
in the
those
East
restaurants.
Village. And a restaurant and culinary school in Oklahoma City, which was like the first iteration of where we met.
Yeah. How did you end up getting that, like connecting with the Matthew Kinney team?
I met him at a dinner that he was doing in Brooklyn because my sister was in college there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then you moved there from Napa.
And then I moved there from Napa.
How long did you live there?
I lived in New York.
I didn't know this.
I know. I lived in New York about 2.5 years, and then spent a lot of time in Maine as well. And then came to LA. I've been here 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think that at the time you knew or always had this like want for starting your own product line and getting into like consumer products, or was it really like food as medicine?
I was just very into all aspects of natural health and healing and wellness. And, you know, part of my story is in my 20s, I really started suffering from eczema. And like now I see it was like stress related skin issues. My mom has psoriasis, and I was taking what I was doing in food and that research and combine like using it as, you know, skincare and trying to basically heal my own skin issues. I've always like, it's funny because I was never like, oh, I'm going to start my own product line, but I've definitely always been a DIYer.
Yeah.
You know, so I've like always made my own products or made my own food or seen things and like figured out how to make it myself. Even creatively, like fashion, like I actually thought that was going to be a path for a minute, and I you know, got a sewing machine or whatever. Like that was a different journey, but I definitely have always made things. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it is a natural, sort of like a natural progression to then have the opportunity to, you know, make and sell my own product.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because when you know how to make things, people want to consume those things, whether that's food or any sort of product.
Totally.
And then, yeah, it is interesting because when you were just saying that you like to make things, I was thinking about you and how you were like showing me how you make those like cute little felt toys with Livia.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, it just like looks so complicated, but it's such cute little like figurines that you guys make together and stuff like that. And just seeing you as a mom and continuing to grow your brand is such a beautiful thing to witness from the outside, and so inspiring for me because I obviously had truth years later. And to me, it was just kind of like I I don't have very many friends other than my LA friends, like I was saying to you, that are working mothers. Yeah. So most women that I know are, just spend their whole life committed to just their children. And I love that. But I also have, similar to you, like this yearning for like making something and for sharing what I've learned with the world. And I'm sure that's the same for you. And your journey definitely has inspired me to know that like I can do that as a mom, and that's okay. And there's a way to balance it all. And I'd love for you to kind of share about your experience, because my mom was an esthetician and she at some point had her own spa, but she didn't necessarily like work full time. And if she did, like we were in school and it was only for a short period. So I consider my mom not a working mom, but you had a full-time mom who is a lawyer.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that enabled her to be able to have balance or not, or if it was like a legit full-time career that like really meant that she was out 9 to 5.
Yeah. I think, there's so many aspects of parenting, or, being a mother specifically and working. And we've definitely, for the last 20 years, I think, put so much pressure, probably 20 or 30 years, put so much pressure on women, or look down on being a full-time mom, or having to choose between being a mom or having a career. And I feel really fortunate that my mom was able to set an example of doing it successfully and doing both. She was a partner in her firm. She was essentially her own boss. Like, that definitely gave her more flexibility than just like being totally tethered, but, worked hard. And I see it as a survival skill, right? To be able to provide for your family and be present as a mom. And it does suck that women feel like they have to choose. And I think you and I have both been really fortunate in that we don't have, there's play toys all in here. And like when I first launched my business and had my daughter basically at the same time, like she was at every PR meeting. I just like drug her around with me, and honestly did not feel guilty about that 1 second, because I wasn't going to be happy just sitting at home for me, and was happy to have like errands and taking her to the bottle supply place. And, I remember we had this huge order for Anthropology that was supposed to be picked up. The wheels fell off of the whole exchange. And I had to essentially go sit in Sun Valley in the car with her for like 6 hours, just like breastfeeding. And I was just like waiting for this DHL truck to show up,
Oh my God.
And I knew at that time, I'm like, this is honestly fine.
Yeah.
Like, what else would we be doing?
At home, just hanging out.
And just hanging out. And I know, like, somebody may say, like, that sounds awful, but it wasn't, it just wasn't. And so, I don't know. Like, I think we had the event, we did this event recently that you were a part of in Venice, and I was behind our little booth, and it was like super small, and she walked in, and she's going to be 6 now, so she's a little bit older, and I was like behind the booth, like with Nusifera, and she walked in with my husband, and I saw her little face just like get so excited that I was like selling products, and now she is in the bath tinkering. I'm making a product. Smell this. She's like putting shampoo and conditioner and whatever else in, and she's like, this is my product. It's so to have her, because the world is a totally different place now than it was when I graduated college or started any of this. And there is, with all the negative, there is also the positive of opportunity to make a career being creative. Yeah. So I don't know.
No, I love that. And it's the same with Truth. It's so cute where they can then like go on behind the table and share with a customer and be able to articulate like the talking points that they've heard you articulate. And
so fun.
And Truth is funny because he thinks that everyone has a product or a business.
Yeah.
Because everyone he's really like surrounded, like you and Laurel and you know, a lot of our friends have something that they offer. And so he just thinks that that's just the way that it is.
Sweet.
And I love that aspect of like showing them that they can create. And like we were just talking about, to show them that the world is a great place. And it can be a great place, and to inspire them that they can like make a difference. Because I think every day we get bogged down with like, can we make a difference? You know, does me recycling make a difference, right? Or does me doing these little things make a difference? But I do feel guilt sometimes, like when I have to say bye and my children are sad. But I love remembering you sharing that you like remember certain things that definitely make it all worth it for sure.
Yeah.
But do you, like, you specifically wear, like I said, so many hats because you have your own business, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're running the household, but you also help other brands with starting their own businesses or with recipes or whatever that might be. So like, how does that work in your household? Do you feel like you take on too much, or it's like a moment, a fleeting moment that it might feel like that, but it passes and like it all works out?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm figuring out how to communicate that more clearly, because in COVID, I did sort of stop some of the consulting and just like focused on Nusifera. And we're at this moment where it's like, should I go all in? You know, do you go all in on the business, or do I continue to take on these other things? And I was telling someone the other day, for me, it can get very isolating working on your own business. It is just me. I don't have a team. The energy, like, you want to be a total self-starter and motivated, but sometimes I need that other project or that other thing on my to-do list to kind of just help me get out of my head and like focus on that, and then stuff comes in for the business and the clarity and the motivation. Because just sitting down at your computer, like wholesale outreaching or whatever it is that I need to do, is so much easier if I have something else like occupying a little bit of my brain space. Because for my business, like a lot of it is streamlined, like right now, knock on wood, but a lot of it is streamlined. So some of the daily things are pretty, can be pretty redundant.
Yeah.
And for me to stay in a creative space is really the best thing for my business, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I love working with other people and seeing what they are doing, and like having and helping people.
Yeah.
I have so much experience and so many contacts and just have seen so many ideas that work and what doesn't work, and can help you sort of think through that. So yeah, that feels productive.
Yeah, like you help people who are just starting, but you also help like bigger brands that might just need, more support, and then you get insight into like what might work for them, and you could apply. So it really like kind of comes back full circle.
Totally. Yeah.
I love that too. I think that it's important because I always actually have this like dream where one day, and I can't do it right now, obviously, or else like I think I'll get shot by like everyone because I do take on too much. But I want to start like a group with my friends or friends of friends that are working moms who have businesses, and like kind of share what works for us and what doesn't. Because I think that I have like one-on-one conversations with someone like you or Laurel or Brooke from Good Milk, and it's so like just eye-opening for me, and I can like kind of shift my strategy. Because at the end of the day, like I'm not going to bring someone in to like tell me what to do with my business, but it's important to like take, just like how we have to take moments in our lives to take like stock of like where we want to go and what decisions we have to make to get there. Same thing with the business. And I think about that all the time and to strategize of like how that works. And it's nice because you do that probably with John.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, nice to do that with, you know, women who are doing that with their own businesses.
Yeah, like there's so much we can all learn from each other, and women, especially talking about money, like is, you know, something that women don't talk about enough, and bringing income in via consulting takes some of the pressure off of my business as far as like what I want to bring home, you know? And maybe somebody would say, you shouldn't do that because you should have that pressure on your business. But I don't want my business to be something that feels heavy. So it provides it helps lift it, you know?
Hey everyone, as most of you have probably noticed, clean beauty has exploded in recent years. And although that's amazing, it can seem sometimes counterintuitive to go out and buy 1,000 different products, even if they're all natural. That's why from the moment I was introduced to Nusifera, I fell in love with their philosophy. Big believers that less is more, they make multi-use products from high-quality plant-based ingredients. You may have heard of their cult favorite, the balm, that's deeply moisturizing and works on everything from combating dry skin to taming hair frizz and split ends. Personally, I love their on-the-go product, the stick. It's an essential of mine, especially as a working mom. I throw it in my bag and use it for basically everything, from dry lips to deodorant to rubbing it on my belly to help with digestion. I've been raving about their products for years. I love that they're unisex and safe for kids, and they can be used on my whole family. They're being so generous to offer our listeners 15% off your order. Use code THEFULLEST at nuciferabody.com. That's NUCIFERABODY.com.
That just reminded me of what you were saying Agnes said to you. And I think that's really, it would be nice to share because that's just a different perspective and a different way of doing it. And maybe if it doesn't feel so heavy, then like the lightness can bring on, like things don't have to be hard. Like they can work well. And yes, there's going to be roadblocks and like shit that hits the fan. But like at the end of the day, I think when like energy's flowing, like it could just like flow well.
I mean, you know, I can't remember exactly how she worded it, but it reminded me also of something that I learned at Rama, like in Kundalini. Like, there's so much money and energy out in the world, and you can either be a beacon of positive reception or you can be the opposite. And you know, look, life does not 100% work that way. I know that it does not. But at least if you're going to roll the dice on it, I would much rather be in a space of
believing that,
you know, and I see it on a daily or at least a weekly basis when I'm in this like spot, like, you know, nothing works. And you see, like, if you lose your temper, like, if you get in that mood, it's like, nothing's working, you know? And then if you're just like, step away, like half of my biggest orders or like best emails or like most just like, yes, we're on it, would like literally happen like while I'm on a bike ride or like at the beach or something.
Yeah.
It does not happen when I'm stressed out at my computer.
Yeah, I completely agree. For us, that same thing, like our big partners, they all emailed us, you know, and they found us and it was through, you know, maybe something else that we did that might not have been the best. Like I think about this a lot with the Fullest because the question comes up like, oh, like focusing on partnerships, like, is that really the best use of our time to focus on partnerships if like we're really just trying to also do our own thing? But it's like this same thing, it all just kind of flows, and like someone might find us through a partnership that we did with someone, and then all of a sudden Saks emails you or something, you know. And I love that you said it's kind of all this like energy that's flowing, and you can either like, you know, be someone that stops it or be, receptive to it or whatever. Because the other day I was so stressed out, actually yesterday, and I was just like cutting toast or something for my kids, and like one was screaming and the other one like just at my legs like begging for me, and then my husband and I were just like getting so frustrated, and he was gonna grab the baby or he was gonna make the food, but I'm like so controlling about the food, so I told him to grab the baby. It was just like insane, and it was like this huge blow up. And later when we talked about it, he was like, you just like were so stressed out, like just putting butter on the toast or whatever, like you were stressed, and I was trying to help you, and then I got to work and I just like started crying, which is like, not very professional. And that release of energy, like that's still energy, and that needed to come out. But really what I'm passionate about, and I know what you're passionate about, is like using these like self-care practices, like you said, Kundalini. Like, I don't know if you need to do Kundalini anymore. I love it. I haven't done it in a while, but yeah, I still love it. But whether it's Kundalini or going on a bike ride or a walk or taking a bath or whatever it is, like those self-care practices that remind us to like be in flow. Like, remember when being in flow was like such a thing? I feel like it was like talked about at conferences.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. What do you mean? What's it flow? But like, that's really what that means. Like being in flow, and then like you're in flow with like life.
100%. Like my whole life changed. I think maybe I even said this on our last like podcast, but my whole life changed. Like I met my husband.
Oh my gosh,
changed careers, got pregnant with my daughter, like all in this very like fast moment in time.
Like,
and
was it like a year, 2 years?
It was like a year.
So insane.
And it was also just when I had turned 30, and I remember Danielle was like, this is your solar return. Like, this is what's happening. And I actually just met with someone recently who had just turned 30, and their life was kind of spiraling. And I'm just like, this is exactly, like, thank goodness that you are having this moment at 30, because
if not, then it happens.
If not, then it happens later. So I forget kind of where I was going with this, but
being in flow.
Yeah, being in flow, and like asking I don't know. I was like panting at Rama obsessively in 2014, just like, show me the signs, show me the signs, show me the signs. And then they just like started.
I mean, I don't know if you're like comfortable getting into that like time period, but like that was like a huge shift in your entire life. You spent how many years in that restaurant scene with, your partner? How long?
Like about 8.
8 years. Yeah. And you like just up and left.
Yeah, I mean, it was all divine timing. Yeah. I don't know. It was all divine timing.
But like to trust or to have that, see, like that's the thing. It's like, it's really easy, obviously, for you and I to sit here and like the universe will support us and like say that,
totally.
But at the same time, like you said, what's the alternative? To like just believe that life sucks and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not productive either. And so saying, to our children, like the world is a great place, like really believe that the world is a great place, and like try and believe and hold on to that for as long as like you can, because that's what's going to like hold you through like later in life. It's like the same thing for us. Like we need to remind our inner child and ourselves, like it's going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I'm not religious, but I hold on to this idea that there's this like higher power that's definitely like has something in store, whether, you're into astrology or whatever that might be. It's like, we're all here and we're all so unique, and our experience is even your experience with Livia and starting Nusi was, for me, a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so it's like it impacts people you don't know that it impacts, sharing about it on social media, even though I was just on Dr. Will Cole's podcast and he was like, okay, like whatever, bunch of questions all at once, just like, what do you think about social media? Is it good or bad? And I was just like, it's hard because social media can be so good.
Yeah.
And it's all about like how you use it.
Yeah.
And I know that you know, that's what you really share on social media. And I think that it really does help people learn more about plant-based foods, whether that's like 100% how you're gonna, instill that on Livia or not. It's still so important for people to remember the power of plants.
Yeah, like in this conversation, like, I mean, first I'll just like add this in, my life has not always been great remotely. My dad was super sick most of my childhood. He got diagnosed with cancer at a super young age. He died when I was 12. Like that was like my childhood from about 8 to 12 was very hard. And staying like somewhat, and it used to annoy me so much because I grew up in the South. There was like a lot of Christianity around me. Like, God does stuff for a reason. God does stuff for a reason. And you're just like, yeah, no. I mean, yes and no. And like, I don't believe that like what happened to my dad was for a reason other than bad luck. And we can all experience that, which definitely contributes to OCD, but
Yeah.
Or like some kind of hypochondria occasionally. But how you react to things, like we are not really in control. You can either walk around miserable knowing that, or you can walk around like a little more light.
Yeah.
And I've sort of chosen the latter route because it's the better, I actually was walking on the Venice Boardwalk around the same time that I experienced a lot of change in my life. And there was a Course of Miracles, just like on the boardwalk. And I picked it. I was just like, wow, okay. Like this is.
Do you have it now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Have you been doing Marianne Williamson? Like she does a reading. You can sign up. Like we should both do. I signed up.
I should do it. I haven't done it. I haven't like done
the
course, or really there's a part of me that is for sure spiritual and always has been, and even with like even with religion now that I see like there is a grounding aspect to it. Like I went to Christian school until the 8th grade. I was never baptized. I just, not to turn this like in a conversation about religion, but
I love it.
Didn't like totally make sense to me to give my life to Christ at that time.
Is your mom baptized? Like
my dad was more religious than my mom, and my mom was just kind of like going with it because he had more of an idea of like that we would be raised in the church. And
like, was your sister baptized?
No.
Okay. So
we, grew up going to church, went to Christian school until the 8th grade. And around 10, like everyone I knew was getting baptized. And I was just like,
why 10? Like, because they choose?
It was, we were Baptist and you get to choose.
Okay.
And so that I feel like is just like an age where you're sort of mature enough to choose. But I was like, because I would always say, yeah, but what if you were born in China? Or what if you were born in the Middle East? Or what if you were,
And you didn't have access to this, then you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, and the answer was never that good enough. It was like, okay, there are missionaries. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But like, what if you were born in China?
Yeah.
What if you were born in the Middle East? Like, you would not believe this. And so I just did that math pretty early on and just could not envision fully giving my life to Christ. So I never got baptized, but I do think that foundation, like of whatever it is, a higher power, some sort of grounding, because I do think we're in this time where we're like, experiencing a crisis of identity and like a crisis of values. Like, what is grounding you? What are your values? Like, what are we instilling in our children? And I do have moments where I'm like, we should just start going to church.
Yeah.
Because
it's just,
it's
easier.
just too much. It's
easier.
too much to navigate the world without any sort of guide.
Yeah.
Other than TikTok or secular, just a purely secular experience. So
I know.
I don't know.
I totally have that thought. And then I'm like, but I don't agree with that. But I do, because I do agree with the foundation 100%.
Totally.
But then it's like, this is all like a way to control people. But then at the same time, I'm sure at some point it was like purely like beautifully channeled text that, I don't know. But then it just kind of, every religion not every, because like you can start your own religion, like I can start my own religion, but these religions that are, more popular that we all know about, like they kind of, at the end of the day, it's about having these like values that are kind, about having morals.
A community and framework to operate in the world. Like I say, I've said this to my husband, I'm like, we were COVID thrivers because, fortunately so, like to be in a cozy, safe home and everything. But
you had community.
We had community. But we also have so many choices and so many directions that we can go in. And that's like a blessing and a curse, it just is. And even, we were talking about school and my daughter's starting school and like, analysis paralysis, like what happened to just like the community school that you're paying taxes for it to be nice and function and you walk there, and in a town like Los Angeles there are so many different choices. It's really overwhelming, and it does destabilize like just like the community feel of like going to your local elementary school.
I love that idea of like one schoolhouse, all ages together.
Yeah.
And I just really want that to happen. There's actually a place here called the Ecology Center.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to go, but they're building a schoolhouse on their farm.
Fun.
And like it's just that exactly that they're doing, which is so exciting. But I think that model of, and like going back to the religion thing, I think the one thing that you and I could probably really like instill that doesn't feel like it's a religion, but it is to other people, but it's this idea of like nature. And like nature being that grounding aspect, and this idea that nature gives us, everything that we need. It gives us sunlight, it gives us water, it gives us herbs, it gives us plant medicine. Like traditional Chinese medicine is all based off nature. Ayurveda is based off nature. Like it's all there. And we are fortunate enough to have access to that because, I think about this all the time. Like different cultures have their way of eating and their lifestyle and their diet. And it's all like, it all makes sense.
It's so much more connected to like where they are. I think the original conversation here was going to be like about plant-based things. And one part of the plant-based movement that I'm seeing now let me just back up for a second. Like,
I know
when I went to raw food culinary school, that sounds just like whatever, but it opened, and I mean, we all in this room have that foundation. And as a dogma and way to 100% live your life, no. But what it did show me is just like eating foods in their most natural state, eating seasonally, like the vibration of the things that you're eating, all of it sounds so fringe, but when you like make that as a foundation in your life in your early 20s, like it really opens the doors to so much understanding, like because we're so disconnected from the seasons and eating foods that are just clean and simple. Like, we don't have to make it complicated and all the diets and the trends and the, like, and I was going to say, like, in the vegan food space now, like, if you had asked me a year ago, I would have said, okay, like, the tech meat aspect, like, I see how it serves its purpose, especially when it comes to factory farming and fast foods and replacement for these foods that are not good for us at all.
Yeah.
But what really needs to happen is people need to be educated about what that is.
Yeah.
And have access. I mean, access is a huge piece of it. Of course, like, have access to foods that are not processed, that are in their more natural state, that are nourishing in this other way. And now it's just like, at this moment, like, so much processed plant food crap.
Yeah, and then
and
plant-based
I'm just like,
has
wait,
this like
we've
bad...
kind of like, hello, like, we need to like
Go back. And it's so crazy to me because it's like the messaging is that it's not accessible, but it's like what we were literally, that's where we were years ago before like the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And that's like, it was accessible for everyone because everyone has a right to have access to unprocessed food. And like, I totally believe that wholeheartedly because all these other cultures, like that's how my mom laughs because she's like, Nikki, like when I would eat quinoa, she's like, Nikki, that's what we fed our animals in Iran. Like that's how animals like grow and become bigger. Like, why are you eating quinoa? It's going to like make you fat. I mean, obviously her whole thing is like, do cashews make me fat? I'm like, this is so backwards.
Yeah.
People ask me that all the time. And I'm like, do cashews make you fat? Like, come on. That's the most like, I mean, there's a whole thing about cashews being poisonous that like David Wolf believes or whatever, but like it's like, it's a cashew, it's a nut. Like, just don't overdo it. You know, let's just like eat real food, not food that's been grown in a lab so that it's not, you know, from an animal anymore, and not food like, and like you said, that's what raw food taught us. That's what the culinary school taught me is look at the label and look at like what's in your food because it's not solving the problem still.
I mean, 100%. You know, it's funny. Like, I think about when I used to be like on my computer, and this was like a lot, like this was probably early 2000s, like on my computer looking at raw food recipes. And I'm like, really? Oh my God. Like, this has so many fat grams and calories. And, you know, I mean, like high school in the late 90s, like we totally ate Slim Fast, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I
like,
loved Slim Fast. I was like fourth grade drinking Slim Fast.
I mean, and then to see like a raw food recipe and you're like, there's so many fat and calories. And then like you get indoctrinated in it and you're like, wow, when you're not eating processed food, like your body just regulates, you feel nourished. That's a whole aspect of like just education that I would honestly like to get more into, especially for younger women. Your brain needs to be calm, not stressed, function, recognize your cycle and the fluctuations that you're going to experience, the fluctuations of even now at almost 40, like looking at them in the mirror, it's like you have your weeks where you feel good and you have your weeks where you feel like you don't look that great.
Yeah.
But now I'm old enough to be like, you basically look the same.
Yeah.
But to have that perspective, because when you're 17, like you just it can become so toxic.
Yeah.
And so eating foods that have high quality fats and minerals and vitamins and a nourished body is so much more regulated, and your perspective on life is just better.
Hopefully you like teach that class and all of our kids
maybe one day. Definitely want to instill that in my daughter, you know, and not like try to avoid a complex
eating disorder.
Fingers crossed.
I don't think like
she doesn't, you know, we eat to nourish our bodies.
Honestly, like eating disorders going back to feeling like you have a lack of control in your life. And also if like your mom is, my Truth doesn't know what fat is.
Yeah,
like what
same.
fat and skinny is. Like we don't have that in our vocabulary.
Totally.
We don't describe people that way. And like when my mom comes over, or when they'll explain, like I'm just like, don't say that word.
Totally.
That it's not even necessary. You can explain or describe someone as wearing an orange shirt, you know? It's just not necessary at all. And I think that when we change our vocabulary, when we're not worried about it and we're doing things because it makes us feel good, like running or yoga or whatever, because it makes us feel good so that we can be in flow.
Yeah.
It's like such a different conversation. They won't even know. And that's where like school comes in, obviously. And you'll experience this because Truth has, gone to preschool. We don't watch any TV. There's no media in our household. He's, watched Thomas the Train here and there or whatever, but it's not like we don't have a TV. So it doesn't happen often. And he went to school and comes back and he's all about like shooting things like Pokemon. And I'm like, I'm going to a Waldorf preschool. Like, what is happening where at even like this preschool, we're talking about guns, and not because there was like a shooting anywhere, but because like that's just in like everyday media. It's so sad. But I think that at home, that's why I think that like having that, being able to have that balance of like being a working mom, but being with our children, or like knowing if your family's with the children or the caretaker is like not, telling them about these things. And it's really hard. The other thing before we like end our podcast, the other thing I think with school, since we're talking about school, that comes up is really interesting because you and I have like a similar diet, I think, and like we've explored. I mean, I say this all the time, until like you took me to Justa, I like didn't even want to eat rice, but then I ate Justa's rice because I was like, okay, like Meredith's eating it, I'm gonna try rice again, which is so sad and goes back to this idea of like having OCD and being scared. It was like obviously when I was just like, not as far along in my journey, but you were at that time like exploring more Weston A. Price in terms of, reading up about the fat and how it's like so good for the brain, but like animal fat specifically, and like grass-fed meat. And then you kind of like turned back to like plant-based, like more plant-based. And I feel like I just don't like meat. Like that's just the way that I've been like my whole life. And I just don't understand, because I'm like, I'm O positive blood type. Like maybe I am not. But I know that at the end of the day, I believe in like our intuition. Mm-hmm. And I believe that going back to this place of like, if I've never liked it, like I just don't resonate with it. Yeah. I don't resonate with that, whatever the vibration of that food is. My dad makes me grass-fed, grass-finished kebabs, and I'll eat it. And that's kind of the extent of my meat journey. But with my kids, like I want them to eat it, but I find it, going back to the school thing, like when we go to parties or stuff like that, it's like, do you want the gluten-free, dairy-free option? It's like, it's not really about gluten-free, dairy-free for me. It's about like, where is the source of the food coming from? Like Fresh Brothers. I'd never like really heard about it. I just saw a sign on like billboards, but now families at the school, like they order Fresh Brothers pizza at parties because they offer dairy-free options, gluten-free options, like all of the above. So there's something for everyone. But like going back to this idea of like food as like just in its most not fully unprocessed form, but it's like our poor children are getting just like, it's still all confusing. Like the menus, the kids' menus on restaurants
are still crap.
It's still the same thing. It's just gluten-free chicken tenders, you know what I mean? It's like, It like drives me nuts. So like, anyways, the reason I'm saying this is because I'd love for you to kind of share your food philosophy, because I mean, people look up to you for that, you know, and obviously online, like it's primarily plant-based because people need that and need to remember that you can eat plants and it tastes good. But like, just kind of give us your whole.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, my philosophy on food is fully what is the source, and that's at home, you know, and eating like unprocessed, just clean, simple, whole plant-based foods at home is what we do. But as my daughter has gotten older and I see what she's gravitating towards, or what and we were talking about this earlier, like just the diversity of their actual diet is pretty, you know, she's not really eating greens, or like she's picky, you know, and I do the best that you do the best that you can within what they will eat. And obviously like not really making separate food for them, and like just trying to like, I used to think that I would not have a picky child. Turns out that's not exactly where we are right now. And so trying to cater to what she wants. And she definitely has like a protein. I mean, she used to eat sardines. She definitely loves like raw cheeses and eggs and things like that. And I don't want to limit her. Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely open to like exploring like what is going to make her, you know, just the healthiest and the most balanced, because I don't want to just give her fruit bombs and sugar and I mean, even with fruit, like I don't think anybody should really be that worried about the sugar and fruit. But if you're 5 and all you want to eat is like mango, you know, like we have to balance it. Mm-hmm. So I just really feel like being mindful of the source. My heart is always plant-based. Mm-hmm. Like it makes the most sense to me. Like you, I've never really had a taste for meat. But I have a story to share. My aunt and uncle and cousins were a major influence in me in deciding to become vegetarian. They've been vegetarian for like 40 years. Wow. And my uncle, who is really he won't listen to this, but he's pretty obnoxious about being a vegetarian, never thought he had touched meat in the last 40 years. And he told me a story. He was hiking in China, gets taken in by this older woman who grills sausages, and he ate the sausages. And he was like, well, she was alive and the sausage was dead. Whose feelings am I going to hurt right now?
Yeah.
And I was starving and cold. And I was just like, wow, you know, I mean, this sounds like so whatever.
But still, silly. It's a big deal.
But I think, you know, we have to remind ourselves too, especially with children and socialization and being a part of community and not being judgy to other parents, and just like not giving your kids, like obviously you set the foundation at home, but they go out in the world, they need to be able to make decisions. I don't want to be like, you're going to a birthday party for this very sweet girl at the park. Like, I actually don't want to be the asshole family that is like, where's this cake from? Yeah. You know, and that doesn't open the door for me to a conversation to anybody. Mm-hmm. That just makes us look like we're sort of inflexible. Yeah. So I do think, you know, you have to realize
there's going to be that.
There's going to be that. And I certainly ate it growing up. You know, I'm not going to give her Ralph's icing at home, but if she has a bite of it somewhere, I'm also not going to lose sleep over it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I'm like not there.
I know, but
I mean, I like obviously, yeah, there's been times, you know, whatever. But like what I found that's really interesting is Truth's at a tennis camp right now, and they're feeding I bring him food to eat because he's 4 and it's like from age 4 to 9. So most of these kids aren't eating until around noon when it's lunchtime, and lunch is pizza or like tacos or something from the local spot, and Truth will sit there and eat his own food and not even ask for pizza. But he eats pizza. It's not even like I don't give him pizza. He eats pizza all the time. It's just like an organic pizza.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me because he's like, oh, I can't have that, and like doesn't even care. And I wonder if when they're nourished, you know, and they don't feel deprived, because it's not like he's a raw foodist, you know, he eats pizza, he eats all of those things, just like a different source. I just tell him like, hey, our family, like we really care about eating organic. It's part of like our wellness routine, and specifically for him, obviously, because he has MCAD, like that's how I manage it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, okay, like I can't have that because it's not organic, but you can have some of my food. And he shares
So
it.
sweet.
But it's like, I think when they don't feel deprived, like you said, if they don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm such an outcast, I can't have it because I'm, you know, it's like not a big deal, then it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we put different, you know, and Livia's a little older than Truth now, so she's doing the math on, you know, things a little bit. And
I know.
Obviously, we're not going to have control over what they eat forever. And I just want to give her the best healthy foundation that I can. And
so she can make the decision.
Decision. We could sit here all day and chat about all of it.
Exactly. I could totally sit here all day and like get into Nusi with you and all that. If anyone's interested, definitely check out our first podcast episode that we had together. We talk about Nusi. It doesn't have the new products that are also some of my favorites, but it kind of gives you a rundown on like the balm and using like a one size fits all, you know, approach to just like personal care products, which I love. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Nikki.